Libra, something about your job has started to feel quietly wrong. Not the kind of wrong that can be explained in a meeting. Not the kind that ends in an argument. The kind you feel after the day is over, when you replay moments you can't fully name. The desk looks the same. The building stands where it always has. People still greet you, but your spirit doesn't sit the same way anymore. It's like standing in a room where the lights are on, but the warmth is gone. You notice it in small ways. A pause that didn't exist before. A silence that lasts a second too long. A smile that no longer reaches the eyes. And suddenly, work doesn't just feel like work. It feels like a message you're being asked to read carefully. Something in you has shifted. And without a word spoken, the place where you earn your living has responded. This message found you because you are already listening, even if you didn't realize it yet. When a person begins to outgrow a season, the season doesn't announce its ending. It sends signals. Before we go any further, quietly type, "I'm paying attention" in the comments. Not for validation, not for visibility, for alignment. Because awareness is the moment change begins to cooperate with you. Libra, this is not a warning meant to scare you. This is not about panic or urgency. This is about recognition. A signal that is calm, precise, and intentional. Your workplace is speaking in ways only your intuition can translate. And tonight, you're going to understand what those signals mean, why they're showing up now, and how they are guiding you toward something more honest, more fitting, more aligned with who you're becoming. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to recognize is not about losing a job. It's about realizing where you no longer belong, so you don't miss where you're meant to go next. There was a time you walked into that place and felt anchored, not just physically present, but recognized. Your footsteps had purpose, your words carried weight, even silence around you felt respectful. You didn't need constant praise to know you belonged there. The flow made sense. The effort matched the reward. Even on the hard days, you understood why you were there. But recently, Libra, something subtle shifted. Not loudly, not suddenly, quietly. You may feel it when you speak and notice eyes drift away. When your ideas are acknowledged, but not acted on. When you give more effort than ever, yet receive less response than before. Your contribution feels lighter, even when your workload feels heavier. It's like adding value to a scale that no longer tips. You're still heard, but your words don't land the same way. They pass through the room instead of shaping it. And slowly, almost painfully, your presence begins to feel tolerated instead of respected. That change hurts in a way that's hard to explain. Because no one confronted you, no one criticized you, no one told you anything was wrong. And that's the most confusing part. Misalignment does not arrive with conflict. It arrives with absence. It's the absence of recognition, the absence of curiosity about your insight, the absence of reaction where there used to be engagement. It feels like continuing to perform in a room that once clapped, but now sits in polite silence. And Libra, hear this clearly. That is not failure. That is not you suddenly becoming less capable or less valuable. That is feedback. When an environment stops responding to your energy, it isn't punishing you. It's signaling that something is no longer matching. Spaces respond to alignment, not effort alone. You can work harder, arrive earlier, stay later. But if the energy connection has changed, no amount of effort can restore what no longer fits. What you're sensing is not rejection, it's transition. You don't feel out of place because you are unwanted. You feel out of place because you've evolved past the version of you that room was designed for. And Libra, you were never meant to fade quietly just to stay employed. You were never meant to shrink your voice, soften your insight, or dim your presence to maintain comfort. When the room stops responding, it's not asking you to disappear. It's asking you to recognize the message. You are no longer meant to pour your energy into a space that cannot reflect it back. And once you see that, you can no longer unsee it. Here is something deeply important, Libra. You did not arrive in this position by chance. You earned your place through consistency, restraint, and effort. You stayed loyal when it would have been easier to disengage. You stayed quiet when speaking up might have created tension. You stayed professional even when personal boundaries were crossed. You chose peace over recognition, stability over visibility. You became the one who fixed problems in silence, the one people turned to when things went wrong, the one who absorbed pressure so the system could keep moving. And rarely did anyone stop to ask how much that cost you. You handled confusion so others wouldn't feel it. You balanced the weight so the structure didn't collapse. Over time, something subtle happened. Your job slowly stopped being about purpose. It became about endurance. You weren't asking, "Is this fulfilling?" You were asking, "How long can I keep going like this?" Libra, this is where the signal becomes clearer. When effort is constantly expected but appreciation disappears, that is not coincidence. That is imbalance. A quiet, spiritual imbalance that always demands correction. You may notice it in your body before you notice it in your thoughts. You feel drained before the workday even begins, as if your energy is already spent before you arrive. Small issues irritate you more than they should, not because you've become impatient, but because your inner resources are depleted. The outcomes you once cared deeply about no longer move you the same way. Not because you stopped caring, but because you've been giving without being refilled. And listen carefully. This does not mean you are ungrateful. It means you have been over-giving in a space that stopped supporting you. No soul thrives in an environment that only takes. Energy must move both ways to remain healthy. Your workplace is revealing something important about you right now. You have been functioning below your true value, subtly adjusting yourself to fit needs that were never meant to define you. The discomfort you feel is not telling you to push harder. It is not asking you to prove your worth again. It is inviting you to reevaluate it, to recognize that loyalty without balance leads to depletion, and professionalism without boundaries leads to loss of self. This season is calling you to remember something simple but powerful. Your value does not increase because you suffer quietly. Your worth does not rise because you endure endlessly. And once this realization settles in, your relationship with work can never return to what it was before. Because awareness changes how much you are willing to give, and to whom. Let's talk about something subtle, yet deeply powerful. Authority. Not your title, not your position on paper, but the way the room responds to you now. Authority lives in reactions, in pauses, in who is consulted before decisions are made. Recently, Libra, you may have noticed something change. Decisions are happening without your input, even in areas where you once played a key role. Your ideas still exist, but they no longer guide the final outcome. Credit feels misplaced, not openly stolen, but quietly redirected. Work you helped shape is discussed without your name attached. New voices are being elevated, sometimes louder, sometimes less experienced, yet given space you're no longer offered. And instead of confronting this shift, you step back and watch. Because you don't react to tension impulsively. You observe patterns before you speak. This is not avoidance. This is discernment. Here is the truth many avoid acknowledging. When respect begins to change without explanation, your role in that environment is changing. Not always downward, not always negatively, sometimes upward, beyond what the current system can hold. Sometimes completely away from what you've outgrown. This shift is uncomfortable precisely because it's unclear. There is no announcement, no conversation to prepare you, just a quiet restructuring of influence. This is not betrayal, it is transition pressure. Your insight has deepened, your presence has matured, your awareness has sharpened. But the environment around you has remained the same. Instead of expanding to meet your growth, it begins to adjust you, to place you where you cause less disruption. That's why the job feels tight. Conversations feel restricted. Your expression feels measured. Your ideas feel contained. Not because you're wrong, not because you lack ability, but because you're trying to fit into a space designed for an earlier version of you. Growth always creates friction before movement. It presses against limitations. It reveals ceilings. It exposes where adjustment is no longer possible. What you are experiencing is not regression. It is a clear signal. you are becoming more than this environment can fully support. And once that realization settles in, the discomfort stops being confusing and starts making sense. Libra, boredom is one of the most misunderstood feelings in the workplace. People often label it as laziness, as a lack of interest, or a sign that someone isn't trying hard enough. But that is far from the truth. There is a unique kind of boredom that only appears when a person has completely mastered their environment. It happens when you've learned the patterns, understood the expectations, and repeated the same tasks so many times that nothing surprises you anymore. You know how to do your job almost automatically. You anticipate outcomes long before they unfold. You solve problems the moment they appear, not because they are simple, but because you've handled them many times before. And instead of feeling proud or fulfilled, you may begin to feel something unexpected. A growing emptiness. Not sadness, not anger, just a quiet sense of, I'm not growing here. That feeling is not failure, Libra. It is completion. A sign that you've reached the ceiling of what this role can teach you. You may notice yourself feeling restless even when nothing is wrong, getting distracted by thoughts of what else is out there, feeling emotionally distant from tasks that used to matter. This doesn't make you ungrateful. It doesn't mean you've lost discipline. It simply means your inner self is shifting its attention forward. Your spirit often moves before your physical life does. And the workplace you're in can sense it, even if no one says anything. Energy always communicates in subtle ways. When a place can no longer challenge you, no longer stretch you, no longer awaken your creativity or curiosity, your body and mind begin sending quiet signals. This chapter may be complete. Your workplace sometimes responds to this shift too. Not through dramatic events, but through an atmosphere that feels slightly off. A routine that feels heavier. A day that feels longer. An overall sense that you're repeating yesterday without gaining anything new. This isn't your workplace rejecting you. And it's not a demand for sudden change. It is simply an early sign of misalignment. A gentle reminder that you may be ready for something with more depth, more challenge, or more meaning. Not out of frustration, but out of growth. Alignment always guides you towards spaces that match who you are becoming, not who you used to be. And boredom, in this context, is not a problem to fix. It's a message to understand. Let's be honest, Libra. There is a quiet knowing forming inside you, not loud enough to cause panic, not sharp enough to demand action, but steady enough that you can't ignore it anymore. Something may need to change. Not because everything is falling apart. Not because your job is becoming unbearable, but because you are no longer the same person who first stood in this position. Yet at the same time, another voice appears. It sounds cautious, reasonable, protective. What if I regret moving on? What if I lose stability? What if I walk away and realize I had it better than I thought? What if this is as far as I'm meant to go? That voice does not come from weakness. It comes from a natural desire to protect yourself from uncertainty. But listen carefully. That voice is not intuition. Intuition brings clarity. Fear brings hesitation, wrapped in logic. Fear tries to preserve what is known, even when what is known has stopped nourishing you. And Libra, this is important. Security that slowly drains your enthusiasm, your curiosity, and your inner peace is not real stability. It is erosion that happens so gradually it feels normal until you notice how tired you've become. Deep down, your soul understands this. That's why the signals are showing up now. Not as disasters, not as ultimatums, but as internal sensations that invite reflection. You may notice dissatisfaction appearing without a clear reason. You might have good days that still feel heavy afterward. You may feel emotionally drained even when the workload hasn't increased. Or you find yourself returning again and again to the same thought. There has to be more than this. I feel like I'm capable of something different. I wonder where this is really taking me. These thoughts are not instructions to quit. They are not signs that you are ungrateful. They don't mean you must act immediately. They mean your awareness is expanding. This stage is not about movement yet. It's about honesty. Honesty with yourself about what excites you now versus what once did. Whether the effort you give still feels meaningful, whether staying is aligned with growth or mainly with comfort. And here is something grounding and important. Change does not always mean leaving tomorrow. Sometimes change begins with how you think, not where you go. It begins with noticing patterns instead of pushing them away, with acknowledging desires instead of minimizing them, with allowing yourself to imagine alternatives quietly, without pressure. You are not being rushed. In fact, the calm nature of these signs suggests the opposite. You are being prepared. Prepared to make choices with clarity instead of fear. Prepared to plan instead of react. Prepared to move thoughtfully, not emotionally. Whatever direction you eventually choose, whether that means adjusting where you are, seeking growth within familiar spaces, or opening yourself to something new in the future, it will happen with intention. You will not move blindly. You will not leap without understanding. You will not abandon stability recklessly. You will move when insight outweighs anxiety. And until then, this phase asks only one thing of you: to trust that questioning your situation does not mean you are failing, it means you are evolving. And evolution never begins with certainty, it begins with awareness. That awareness is what you're being given now. Here is something most people miss, Libra. Before a new door opens in your working life, the old one almost never closes dramatically. There is no announcement, no clear ending, no obvious signal that says, this chapter is over. Instead, the door begins to loosen. What once felt secure starts to feel unsure. What once felt familiar starts to feel temporary. The grip you had on certainty slowly weakens. You may still be doing the same job, showing up at the same place, following the same routine, yet something underneath no longer feels firm. This doesn't mean something bad is happening. It means the structure that once held you is no longer meant to define you. You might notice small, almost invisible changes. Responsibilities shift without clear explanation. You're asked to do different things, but without a strong sense of direction behind them. Your role feels blurred, as if its original shape is dissolving. You are still capable, still needed, still functional, but something about the position feels unfinished. At the same time, subtle opportunities may begin appearing around you. Not formal offers, not concrete plans, just ideas that linger. A conversation that stays with you longer than expected. A task that awakens an interest you forgot you had. A moment where you imagine yourself doing something else. Not urgently, not desperately, just thoughtfully. You may feel drawn to learning something new, exploring a different skill, improving yourself in ways not strictly required by your current role. These impulses aren't random. They are not distractions. They are early invitations. Your workplace may not realize it, but it is unknowingly preparing you. Not by pushing you out, but by placing you in situations where reflection becomes unavoidable. Moments where you quietly ask yourself, is this still aligned with who I'm becoming? Am I growing here or simply maintaining? Does this space still recognize the version of me that is emerging? That question changes everything. Not because it demands an answer right away, but because once it appears, you begin to observe differently. You notice how your body reacts at work. You pay attention to what drains you versus what still energizes you. You become more aware of what feels heavy and what feels light. You might feel like you're standing in a long hallway now. Behind you is a room you once belonged to. Ahead is a door you can't fully see yet. You're not trapped, but you're not settled either. This middle space can feel lonely. Others around you may still feel comfortable. They may not understand your hesitation because externally everything looks fine. But internally, something is reorganizing. This hallway is not empty time. It is alignment time. Here, you are meant to slow down mentally, even if your life continues at the same pace. You are meant to observe rather than react, to gather information rather than make declarations, to build quiet confidence instead of rushing forward. This phase is not asking you to quit impulsively. It is not asking you to distance yourself emotionally or burn bridges. Nothing here is about escape. It's about positioning. Positioning yourself to make better choices later. positioning your skills, your awareness, your self-worth, positioning your energy so you don't repeat the same cycle again. You are being encouraged to become clearer about what you need from your work now, not what you needed years ago. Stronger in knowing your limits, more deliberate in deciding where to invest your effort. And when the next step becomes clear, whether it arrives slowly or unexpectedly, it will not feel frantic. It will feel calm. Because true alignment does not rush you forward. It meets you when clarity settles in. Change that is meant for you does not chase you. It does not pressure you. It does not create chaos. It unfolds steadily in cooperation with your readiness. Trust this pause, Libra. This moment is not holding you back. It is giving you space to see clearly. And clarity is what ensures that when you do step forward, you step into something that genuinely fits, not something you'll outgrow all over again. Libra, listen closely. What you've been sensing at work is not rejection. It is not failure. It is not proof that something has gone wrong. Your workplace is not pushing you away. It is loosening its hold so something more fitting can eventually align. Nothing is wrong with you. You are not behind schedule in life. You are not late. You are not missing your moment. You are realigning. And realignment is rarely comfortable at first. What feels unsettling right now is actually creating space. Space for honesty, space for clarity, space for a deeper understanding of what you truly need going forward. That's why certain things have started to stand out more clearly. The conversations that now feel different, the emotional distance you've noticed, the quiet urge to rethink your direction. These are not signs of loss, they are signs of awareness waking up. This phase does not mean something is ending badly. It means energy is being redirected thoughtfully. And redirection does not happen all at once. It happens gently, one realization at a time. When the timing is right, you will find yourself in a space, whether through change, growth, or adjustment, where your presence no longer has to be questioned, your effort does not need negotiation, and your value feels visible rather than explained. Until then, nothing is asking you to rush. Nothing is asking you to panic. Nothing is asking you to doubt yourself. This moment is asking you to stay observant, to listen to what feels heavy and what feels light, to trust your growing awareness. If this message brought something into focus for you, gently type "I'm ready" in the comments. Not as a promise to act immediately, but as a signal that you are open to clarity, open to alignment, open to moving forward with intention rather than fear. And if you want to continue receiving guidance like this, calm, grounded, and empowering, subscribe softly, not out of urgency, out of resonance. You are not meant to navigate this season alone. Libra, trust what you're noticing. Awareness is not confusion. Discomfort is not punishment. The signal is real, and it is not here to harm you. It is here to guide you. Stay aware. Stay steady. Your next chapter is not forcing itself open. It is forming quietly, and it is closer than it feels.